do not forget. Excellent. All right. Welcome, everybody. All right. So let me see. Let me click back here to the class. First post. So a lot of people, not a lot of people, a handful of people have done the chicken people thing. You need to seek that out. You know, that link. I know it's on Amazon. Like I said, sometimes I'd like to show it, but we're not going to be able to, as I'm going to be in class, as I'm going to be working through the next chapter, and I'll talk about that. So Thursday is when you have to make your post by, so check that out. You might be able to find it somewhere on the internet. I know it's on Amazon. It's probably even on Amazon Prime, but watch that. And then likely after this Thursday, either Friday if we meet, and I'll let you know about that later, or next Monday, we'll discuss that in class. Yes, you are doing it for a grade for a discussion board. However, I would like for us to discuss that more personally. All right, you can watch it through the link for free if you watch it with ads. Okay, great, awesome. All right, please unblock your cameras. I've got 56 people in class and I can see 12 of you. That's not gonna cut it for my class. I need to be at least looking at a page or two of human beings. So those are the rules. Please unmute your camera. And I don't think we should have any troubles today, hopefully, with lag or anything like that, because both the boys are again at school. Wow. Hopefully that is going well for them. All right, only had a few people unblocked, so there we go. There's more folks. Excellent. Good to see you, human beings. Any questions before I move on? Sort of make sure you post your first post by the February 4th, which is, I believe, Thursday. Okay, I'm going to be heading into chapter 3. Now, I do have videos up. Oops, could somebody unmute? Let me mute your mic there. I do have videos up on the YouTube channel that are embedded on the site as well in modules for chapter 2. Now, I don't not want to lecture on chapter 2, but that's on research. And although I find research really interesting, and you're definitely going to have to know about it because we're going to be doing some social research for our paper, I think we can spend our time a bit more wisely and move into chapter 3, which is on culture, which is, I think, a bit more interesting. So, and there's a lot going on. So I'm going to wrap up chapter 1, then we're going to skip chapter 2, but the first exam is going to be over chapters 1, 2, and 3. I do have a lecture for that, like I said already, in modules, so please check that out. Before I move on to chapter 3, however, I did want to talk about wrapping up. We looked at the 3 major theoretical paradigms, looking at structural functional thought, looking at conflict theory or perspective, and symbolic interaction. And we ended with symbolic interaction, which is that one micro piece, which is the one up close and personal kind of look at things that we have in sociology. All right, so let me back it up here, and I'm going to look at these questions and just look for a second at the responses. Now, let me go ahead. I did open up some questions today. There's only about 48 people who have responded. So right now, while I'm reading these other ones, if you want to log on really quick to Top Hat, answer those questions. We are going to get into a little bit of that data today. I opened it up. It's open till 7 p.m. So let me backtrack though onto chapter 1, because we did have a couple questions that I wanted to look at. All right. Did I ask the question, who is society functioning well for? I don't think we actually talked about that in class time, but I did ask that question. So this is one of the rare cosmic moments of agreement that we will have. So let's look at this here. And the question is, who is society functioning well for? Women. Okay, we had 100 people answer, I believe. So women, 0 people chose that, functioning well for women, as we look at structural functional thought, right? I'm connecting these. Next, people of color, 0 people chose that. 73 people chose the rich. 4 people chose everyone has the same opportunity. And 2 people chose llamas. It should be noted that 2 more people chose llamas than any of the real categories that actually exist. So why did you choose that? As we look at structural functionalist thought, and we're going to look at it. And like I said, I think there's some value in it. How is society functioning? It must be functioning decently in many ways, because here we are in class and blah, 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 blah. But let's look at that once. why did you answer the way that you answered? I mean, we are overwhelmingly here. 0 think it's functioning well for women, 0 for people of color. Only 4 people has the same opportunity. In the past, this was a category that was much more robust. 73 people the rest. Why do you think? Yeah, I'll talk about chapter content in a bit. I'll circle around that to the end. So we'll come back to that. Even though I see that there's a couple questions there. But let's kind of keep on with this. Why did you answer? Why do we overwhelmingly think that society is not functioning well for these folks and is for the rich? Is that just something like your first gut instinct? Is that something we've seen evidence of? Make an observation. Go ahead.
So I originally said the rich, but I want to change my answer to llamas because I don't think it's functioning well for anybody right now. Because we have that whole issue with like the GameStop stocks and they're like people with hedge funds and all that stuff. So I would say society's not functioning well for anybody right now.
Sure. And to play devil's advocate, or some advocate anyway, billionaires have increased their billions during this time. So yes, the internet does finally pose a threat for dominant culture, rich folks on Wall Street. And good for those people. Isn't this supposed to be fair? But I guess, yes, looking at it from that perspective, maybe it's not functioning that well for anyone. Good. I appreciate that.
That is why I said like the rich originally, because the rich have gotten richer.
Right. Okay, good. Who else?
I just picked the rich because I thought it wasn't anybody else on there. Like what you're saying, like it's already been repeated, but how the rich are getting richer and the poor are probably getting poorer, like with losing jobs or something like that.
Right. Good. Anybody else? This is just a high level of, it's funny because we have such a big makeup in this class. When I get this kind of agreement across the board with such a broad question, it's always interesting to me as a sociologist. Go ahead.
I said the rich based on personal experience. So for example, I'm an international student and I am looking for a job on campus because I'm legally only allowed to work on campus, but most of the jobs favor the people who live here and the people who pay a quarter of tuition that I pay. So for me, that's just a prime example of the rich getting richer and the poor getting poorer.
Right. All right. Good input. All right. Okay. So we'll move on. So interesting though, again, just as we cultivate our sociological perspective in here, I found it interesting that again, that like 2 of our categories, women or people of color, 0 votes. And I think that if we are unanimous in at least that business, then we know where there's a lot of work to be done, right? So a question like this not only gauges opinion, but it really does look at a lot of the points of inequality that we'll be studying. Llamas with an increase in activity, rights movements, llamas become increasingly easier. Society goes use llamas as beast of burden, keep them as companions. This is the kind of in-depth thinking about llamas that I do appreciate, being a Monty Python fan. We're all in the same, we are not all in the same boat. We are in the same storm. Some have yachts and some have rafts. Yeah, and we know whether it's a race analogy or a boat analogy or just an overall, if we're going to look at statistical pieces. Yeah, absolutely. It's functioning better for certain folks than it is for others. All right. Which theoretical approach do you like best? 17 said conflict, 22 said functionalist, 22 said interactionist, gender conflict, 12, some decent interest in that, and then 5 as far as race conflict. So, I always think that it's interesting to at least know your tendencies. If you have or are interested or lean towards one of these perspectives or understand one of them better, then that means spend a little time with another one, right? And I think that as a human being, there is no right or wrong answer with this. Just like, which one do you like best? I gravitate towards a conflict perspective because looking at issues of inequality is like, that's my thing. That being said, I think it's important if we do gravitate to one of these to understand that there's value in like all of them and to, see what that is as we apply it through sociological perspective. Okay. The cheek characteristic oops, I didn't ask that one. This approach that views society as an arena of inequality that generates change is, 5 people said functionalist, no. 6 people said interactionist, no. But 65 folks said conflict, and that is correct. So inequality is the big word around conflict, not necessarily violent action or tension in that way, but competing for scarce resources in a society that isn't set up to be equal. In fact, the way we stratify this society, and it should be known as we will get into that chapter later, but every single culture, society, human culture, society on the face of the planet finds and stratifies their society in some way to justify some form of inequality. Okay, so that's not just a component of this country or this culture as we look at the piece across sort of the global spectrum. All right. I will come back up here and have do an example of a chapter content assignment we can look at so we can see exactly what you were looking for. Yes. Let me post like one question from last semester from a different chapter. It's pretty basic, but I'll do that. And I think I also posted some other ideas about how to be successful. That's not due until Friday, but obviously start writing your essays on chapter 1 now, things like that. And I'm segueing here, looking at this question now that I'm done with chapter 1. Any questions about chapter 1? I saw this said the book says the purpose of reviewing existing knowledge is to learn about studies that have already been done so you can set your research in the context of existing studies. What does that mean? And this is what we really look at, or you're going to look at, in chapter 2. And so I would say this about research, or what that paragraph said that maybe people just read here, I read it out loud. We have to have something solid to build on, right? Like, we're going to learn new things, but we've got to know that there's been good social science done so that when you build on top of those observations, you know that we're building on a solid foundation. So you've got to look at pre-existing viewpoints. And hopefully those are backed up. Those are peer reviewed. Those come from socially scientific and relevant people that are doing work in those fields, you name it. Do we have to do an essay for each individual question for Friday? Yep. So I think for Friday, there's 4 or 5 questions. You number them just like they're numbered in the assignment. Number 1, and you write an essay. And I mean like half a page, right? Single spaced. Like a paragraph. No, you don't need an intro and an outro for every single one of these because it's not one long essay. You're addressing, and I mean an essay question. We will have an essay where there'll be multiple parts to the paper. I'm actually going to look and explain our big paper today to folks. So that's that Food Matters paper. But yep, so about half a page per question. You're going to have the answer. You're going to have the textbook information that you're going to cite. No question, like every question has to have citations or it won't be graded, okay? So in-text citations, MLA or APA. And then you should add your own personal insight to some of these questions. It is absolutely appropriate when constructing a good essay in sociology to say, this was my experience with this, right? Whether we're talking about deviance or race or which sociological paradigm you think is more interesting, I think it's fine if you're putting your own perspective in there as well. Okay, so yep, that's just a lowdown on that. And I provided a little more information, I believe, in announcements. And the book is okay to citation for the essay. I prefer any citation format that you are comfortable with as long as you are consistent. You cannot jump between APA and MLA. And your textbook, yes, is required. Okay, if you do not have the required textbook for this class, for these essays, you're not going to be getting those, earning those points. We could all go to the internet and type in, copy and paste this question and come up with a whole bunch of stuff. That being said, is it peer reviewed? Is it solid social science? I picked this textbook for a reason, and it's not to make this company money, because I make them work for us and give us cheaper options. And I really do like Sage. So yeah, have to use your textbook. And if you're running into a situation where you can't get it before Friday, we are well into the semester, but talk to your GTA. All of our citations can be from the book, sure. And if you look at a question or you like, I need to go outside of the textbook to be more clear about this or to add a dimension to it, I'm fine with that, as long as every question is rooted in this textbook as your primary source. All right. Okay, jump into chapter 3. So now let's move to some of our questions today. I see that we got some, I think at least 60 people that have answered each one of these. If you haven't logged in to Top Hat, please do so. Those will be open. I think it's a file that's got today's dates on it, so we should be all good. And sometimes I was going to open it up before the weekend, but don't worry, you can still answer even if you don't answer until after class, or you're in a place that you can, or whatever that might be. All right, go ahead and do a screen share here. And okay, whoops. Sorry about that. That's not sharing a whole lot of that screen, is it? Okay, so sorry, move some stuff around here. I was going inside. I want to change a couple things. Oops, in our text or in the modules because they're presenting. Oh, come on. There we go. Sorry. All right. So today I'm going to talk about the Food Matters Project. This project is due on April 12th, and it is the big paper of the class. Today, I'm going to share sociological relevance with you and talk about what I expect for before I get into chapter 3 with each of these sections of the paper. But it's a big piece. It's 150 points. So it is worth an exam and a half, and you'll have from now until April. Now, that is not as long into the future as we might think, all right? Semesters still move fast. Even during sort of COVID semester where it seems like extensions get extended, there is an end and a beginning to all of this. All right, would you say you eat mostly fast food or on the go, mostly organic food, whatever is in front of me? Let me look back here as we see how people answered in this class. And what we're really examining is our relationship with food. Now, I know I might have mentioned this, but I think it's worth breaking it down. As this, in semesters past, as this assignment got closer and closer, I would talk about it more, and then people still wouldn't kind of pay attention to the last minute or the night before. That is classic me. I am not judging. When I was in school, wow, it was hard to keep me on task, hard to keep myself on task. So that's why I'm starting this early, okay? Because I think that there'll be more benefit for it for you. You'll do better. You will attain a higher grade. We're all happy. All right. So would you say you eat? And we've had about 66 people respond. 9 people, mostly fast food or on the go. 11 people, mostly organic food. So split kind of down the middle. And then 43 people, so 3 or 4 times that, whatever is in front of me. And then 3 people for existential answer D, I guess. Right? D, what is food? So look, we're split right now, but one thing that we know is that, folks are eating at this point in college, as a quick cross section, what they can get their hands on. And maybe that's something really nutritious for the school, maybe used to eat out a lot. And so the fact that you're staying in more has been a really good thing for your health. I don't know, right? Like your relationship with food is not only going to change throughout the course of your life, but could have drastically changed even within the last year or month, whatever that might be. So let's look really quick at another question before I put up the PowerPoint again. Which of the, describe your relationship, here we go. Describe your relationship with food. All right, we've got 65 answers. Healthy, best part of my day. Casual, easy to access. Struggled with an eating disorder when I was younger, but have learned to love food. I eat healthy and organic. Sorry, put this down. Unbalanced, a comfort necessity. I love it. I'm a very picky eater, so complex. My son Zion, my little guy, well, little, he's 13 now, but did I tell you about when I was introducing myself when he was little about food and him being tough with food? No? I think this is worthy. This is good in advance for you, 20 years of being a parent or however long it is. This will be valuable to raise your hand if you consider yourself a picky eater. Anybody here like a tough eater or a picky eater or whatever that might be? Maybe that's for health reasons, right? Maybe that's like, it could be for any number of reasons. But so Zion would show up to the dinner table and he'd be like, pizza? I don't eat pizza. And I'd be like when he's 7, 8, 9 years old, I'd be like, bro, that's like your favorite dinner. And he'd be like, nope, I don't eat pizza. And I'd get really frustrated. And then the next time he'd come to dinner and be spaghetti, I don't eat spaghetti. And like this went on for a while, right? For like a few months. And we went down our heads, like, raise your hand in here if you've ever heard of the Clean Plate Club, as we talk about our relationship with food, right? How many people have parents or whatever that might be, you got to finish your food. Maybe you couldn't even leave the table. My partner's dad actually would belt her to the table, and then you had to stay overnight. Like, if you either ate it or you slept there. All right. So as we're new parents, we're like coming up with all these ideas, and I'm definitely, something's not right. He's leaving the table and then he's eating whatever later, and it's chaos, I tell you. So I talked to my mom on the phone, and I'm like, this is driving me crazy. And I tell her about just what I told you. And so she says, Jason, I have 2 questions for you. One, is he winning? And this is like 5, 6 years ago. And I was like, yes. And she's like, all right, number 2, are you afraid that he will be malnourished? And I'm like, oh no, I teach all sorts of classes. I do food stuff. Like, there's no way he's going to be malnourished. She's like, then what's the problem? And I was like, wow. So that was how mom was able to immediately stop all of whatever that struggle was. And then immediately he'd come to the dinner table and be like, I don't eat pizza. And I'd be like, cool. And he'd be like, what? And I'd be like, yeah, cool. See you later, man. Good luck with the eating thing. Then I was like, so you can't eat anything else, but if you're down with pizza, and then suddenly you started eating. Anyway, so yeah, some relationships with food are really complex. Some are more simple, and for all sorts of reasons. Seafood is my fuel, so I like to eat healthy as I can. Hard because of allergies. Unhealthy. Feel like I have a good relationship. I eat because it's a necessity. Must eat. Don't eat all day because I'm busy. Then eating too big of a meal. Love and appreciate food. It's complicated. Yes, I love food. Happy belly equals happy life. Toxic necessity. Fast metabolism. I love it to death. Moderately healthy. My own cooking is my favorite. Oh, fantastic. Disappointing. Wish I didn't need it. Wow. Oh, no. Here we go. Bulking. Just bulking. One word. Describe. Okay. Me too. Really, I find that a lot of my day I spend bulking. Anyway, strained and lacking routine, one-sided. I struggle with an eating disorder. My relationship with food is harsh, unstable, lazy, brings me joy. Whatever is convenient, whatever is quick. We are in an extremely committed relationship. Oh, I like that one. Let me see. Temperamental at best. Food likes to kill me. Food likes to kill a lot of Americans. Healthy relationship, uninformed, erratic. I try to eat as healthy as possible, towards organic and plant-based as well. Healthy relationship, good. All right, wow. That was excellent. So if you haven't been asked that question, right? If you haven't been asked that question, which probably you haven't recently, what's your relationship with food? That is the purpose of this big paper. Okay. And again, I could give a paper on all sorts of things that I think are interesting, but that people might find like offensive politically or just not of interest. And if you're going to be writing a paper and you're in college, you should be writing something academic about something you're interested in. So part of this paper even gives you a choice into what aspect of this you want to write about, because then you will write a better paper. Right? And that's just how it works. So I want you to succeed on this. So let me go ahead and do a screen share here, and let me, I will break it down. All right. So how important are the ingredients to you? Here we go. Okay, it's due April 12th. If any of the dates on the syllabus are ever different, just like I said before, Canvas is where everything is embedded, and I know that that's the case. So to examine sociology and relationship of food in our culture, what we eat, how we eat as a culture, what's being done to regulate or protect our food, what's not being done, what is in our food, how does it relate to our health individually, as an entire culture, what social problems or benefits arise because of our relationship with food. To me, this is really huge because everybody eats. So what's the sociological relevance of this? Everything. It's like everything from like, what's the cost on society, right, for fast food culture, or what's the risk or benefit or harm to you as an individual. So we're going to look at as many of these things as possible. Okay. I'm giving you till April 12th. If that is during the beginning of spring break, I'm not worried about that. I am just trying to give you as much time as you have possible. You could turn it in literally tomorrow, or take all the way to the 12th, right? So that's up to you. But I didn't want to make it due before that weekend. If people are going to be around and want to work on it, then that's a few more days extra for you. And I'm not sure how many people are going to be dancing on a bar on Cabo this spring break. My plans fell through too. What can I say? All right. The Food Matters essay assignment in this course incorporates all of our course objectives. I want you to gain a new perspective on how we look at food, how we look at how we eat, and not in a shaming way, so that we bring up some kind of sociological connections and relevance, right? And we can't escape it. We need to eat, or we depend on eating to live. So what are those course objectives? Then I will try and, get through this in an expeditious way, but I still want us to have a good idea of what I'm looking for. So it accomplishes this because I want you to help understand your society, not only as it is, but in sociology, society as it might be. Again, we're looking at these things to be like, wow, if we can identify this or that or the other, that might be like an anti-foaming agent that has recently become illegal to put in foods. We don't just study that to study it. We do it because society is this way. And now maybe without that in our food, we see this positive, right? As it might be. Because like I said before, we're always changing. So what do we eat? How is it grown? What's in it? And what's happening as far as food choices available to us? And that stuff, like I said, there's really interesting things going on with the differences in food right now. Here's a couple things: recalls, government website, something about some orange juice being tainted. You can look at that. But issues with food safety, recalls, you name it, from the individual and symbolic interaction right up to the big picture with structural functionalism, or inequality and conflict, we can look at that. So to help you understand the social world on our planet, the world as it is, and it might be, obviously, we're going to look at this through a cultural lens. Not every society has the same relationship with food, right? Everyone, in fact, has quite a different one. So you'll come across data and analyses that demonstrate the impact current methods of growing food have on our planet. So big picture, I'm asking you in one of these sections to look at local farming, conventional farming, organic farming. How are different methods of food production carried out, and what's that mean? What's that look like, okay? Then you develop an analysis of your own of how these choices grow, or to grow food in certain ways will impact our society, you as individuals, the world. Okay, this is not a paper where I'm asking you to come up with the idea that Jason likes organic food, so therefore organic food is the best thing. Look, that's why I'm having you look at conventional, local, organic, agricultural methods, cultural aspects of this thing. You do, all of those perspectives neutrally, and then you'll have, like I said in the last section of the paper, a way to look at it in your own way. Oh, I love pigs.
Professor Downing?
Yep.
For that, would you say we could look at what would happen if we just stopped growing a crop altogether?
We'll talk about that in a minute. When we, for section 3, you mean?
For the one where you want us to look at the big picture. And what would happen.
So what do you mean by stop growing crops altogether?
So if we stopped growing carrots, for example, what would happen if we just stopped growing carrots?
Maybe the last part, but I kind of want an overview, and I'll go through the description of the assignment too. But yeah, I mean, and that's an interesting piece of food stuff too. Are there foods that are way not sustainable as compared to others? Or anyway, so to help you understand yourself better, right? Because you're looking at your impact with food. Hey, it's Paula Deen. One of my favorite foods, biscuits and gravy. That's right. I like a huge plate of biscuits and gravy coming in at about 5,000 calories. That would be just the best thing on a Sunday morning for me. Multiple components, research, critical thinking, comparative analysis. All of these components you're going to see in every sociology class. You're also going to have to do research and comparative analysis in other classes, right? I mean, you're pursuing your college degree. This is going to help you become a better writer. And I'll tell you right now, if you graduate college with the ability to express yourself in writing, you are going to be ahead of the game. Okay, you need to learn how to do that while you're here, and we're here to help you do that. Your GTAs that are going to be grading your weekly assignments, I'm here, the people, that are resources for you, across the college. All right, as well as many other topics. So let's take a look at it. Oh, I see Boba in the background rolling around on my carpet, our Boston Terrier. There she is. All right, so here it is. Expectations. There are 3 sections to this paper, okay? And each section is worth a different amount of points. So section 1 is make a list of 10 foods that you eat at home that would have a list of ingredients. So box of mac and cheese, organic, and conventional, okay? Right? So you don't have to go to a grocery store. It says that, but you can look up Annie's Organic Mac and Cheese and come up with the label. So I want the list of ingredients, and I want them to be comparable, okay? So 10 foods, mac and cheese, list, conventional, organic, spaghetti sauce, conventional, organic, health bar, granola bar, conventional, organic. You do that for 10 of them. You should have 2 columns, one with conventional, one with organic in there. We're going to start to look at ingredients, types of ingredients, okay, for section 1. Then I want you to do a brief research on 10 of those ingredients, like you're going to have 100 ingredients from all those things, or more likely, okay? And I want you to look up 10 specifically with a food fact, and I'll show you what that looks like here, okay? So red dye number 10, or high fructose corn syrup, and then a little paragraph about it. So section 1, including all of those, are worth 40 points. Here it is, right? Ketchup, the organic version, the other version, Alfredo sauce, whatever that might be. Potassium sorbate or riboflavin. This isn't even like a paragraph. It's just because it's big that it looks like so much. It's just a couple sentences with a citation. So you've got the comparable lists of foods with ingredients, 10 of them, total ingredient list, and you have 10 specific ingredients with a citation. Again, Google Scholar, the library research system at CSU, something besides like the first page of a search engine, okay? At least in as far as when you're really looking up, and look up a couple different ones. I mean, look, there are companies that are going to pay to have all sorts of research done that says that high fructose corn syrup is okay, it's no big deal, don't worry about it. There's a lot of them that are going to have contrary information. Let's look at that. Also, you might find something here that has 5 syllables, ditrimethylocloline, and it's like another name for salt, right? Not everything that has a huge name is insidious. That being said, the FDA and USDA non-food ingredients are allowed in our food. There are chemical degreasers, there are makeup components, there are all sorts of just non-food ingredients that are in ingredients. So if you find some of those interesting ones, you can include those. Like I said, not everything is insidious. All right, part 2, first section was worth 40 points, this is worth 50. Conduct research on conventionally grown foods, genetically modified foods, locally grown foods, and organically grown or raised foods, right? Then you compile your research, you're doing a 2-page single-space essay. So the first thing is listing and the food facts. The second thing is 2 pages single-space that has these food facts about different methods of farming, okay? How these foods are grown. This is a good way to look at this from a neutral standpoint, i.e. you might favor conventional food or organic food. That's not the purpose of this. The purpose of this is to look at the advantages and disadvantages of how we grow our food and what that means to us. And again, yeah, these guidelines are on Canvas underneath assignments, absolutely. All right. So 2 pages for that section. Now, part 3, and I'll open this up for you to ask questions, but part 3, examine it from a cultural perspective. And I have in the United States, but it could be from any cultural perspective, and not just like how Mesoamericans do food, or like not something like that. This could be safety, regulation, social movements, bulking up, right? If like weight gain is a thing for a subculture of people, what's that mean? What's that look like? Medical facts, health trends, and basically you don't have to address all of these, just what is it? I mean, one thing that you could write 2 pages on would be like veganism that's trying to find meat substitutes, because there's veganism that's just nuts and berries and whole foods and things like that. But then like, what about meat substitutes for veganism. What's that look like? Is it safe? To me, as a sociologist, it's like really interesting. You know, when Julie first told me at Vitamin Cottage, they've got a new veggie burger and it's even got beet juice in it so that it simulates blood in meat. You know, this sociologist right here was like, what? Like, tell me more. That's awesomely interesting and weird. Okay, so I want you to be as specific as you can. And this section is also 2 pages single spaced. So you've got the ingredients part, 2 pages single spaced of farming, 2 pages single spaced of some interesting cultural perspective. No, you can't do obesity or eating disorders, because how would you do that in 2 pages when people have written 2,000 books about that very thing? You know, so I really want you to get as specific or interesting as possible, something that appeals to you. All right. I'm going to go past this quickly, but the font is 11, at least 7 sources for parts 2 and 3. You're going to have 1 source for each of those 10 food facts. Ingredient list, and don't look at November 13th. Sorry, that's wrong. I didn't correct that. I'm trying to cover it up, but it's still being broadcast. So it's April 12th. And then the last part, the cultural perspective, that's 60 points as well. So before we go into culture, and that's right, Culture Club. Let me stop this. And do you have any questions about the Food Matters project or about an idea potentially for that 3rd part of the project? Now, again, why are we spending time talking about it now? We have to spend some time talking about it. And the better grasp you have ahead of time, I think, you know, you could do this ingredient part in the next couple weeks and like have a 1/3 of the paper done and just take little bits and pieces so that when you find a break in this class from an assignment, like after next week in the test or whatever that is, then you find a place, right? We're all like running backs looking for that place where things die down for a second and then we can get through. So, all right. How do we know the difference between organic and conventional? Organic and conventional, and I see somebody here, most organic stuff will have labeled. It will be labeled. If you go to a place and you're still going to the grocery store, like King Super, in the middle of the aisles are usually like the organic section, but they're in the same aisle. So on one side, you might be like, take a picture of the ingredient list from organic spaghetti sauce, turn around, take a picture of like ragu, or I don't even know whatever that might be. Again, you could probably search these all and find them online, right? And of course, King Super, places like that have their own line of organic foods as well. Okay. All right. Who else has a question about a topic or anything else that I can clarify for you? How many total pages? The first section is lists. The second section is 2 pages single spaced. The third section is 2 pages single spaced. So 4 pages single spaced of writing plus a section of some listing. And why single spaced? Because I could tell you 8 pages double spaced. There's no, it's like, why? It's just 4 pages. Or, you know, you can write it in double space and then shrink it. It's always more exciting, of course, to write it single space and then make it magically longer, which is like a formula students have been doing now for decades. Not you, of course. All right. Who else has a question in this class? Can we use vegan idea? Actually, I really like that. Something I'm trying to meat substitutes. Sure, if you're specific enough. Yeah. And if you're looking at questions, I think a good idea for part 3 could be to interview somebody. And I do cover that in my chapter and the videos on chapter 2 for research. What's that look like? How do you make sure you're careful and get consent? You can interview people nowadays online through Zoom. You could record the whole thing. You could do it through email, and then people type you their answers, and then you copy and paste them into your paper, whatever that might be. Yeah. I like the vegan idea, but you got to find some type of specific piece to it. Okay. All right. Other questions that you have. Go ahead and unmute your mic if you have an actual question you want to ask. Ooh, how eating habits. Hey, Bubba, get up here. Sorry. Got a teenager who left a bag of chips out. Boston Terrier has her whole head in it. Okay. Bubba, get up here. Good girl. Sorry about that. Let me see. Can we do eating habits once you have moved in or married? Ooh, yes, absolutely. If you are living with somebody and you're eating, that's really interesting. Absolutely, love that idea. Can I email you with my idea? A little complex. Don't want to take too much time from lecture. Sure. And I'm going to start lecturing on the next topic here in just a couple minutes, but just wanted to at least touch base. Anybody else have an idea? Can we focus on kiddos like childhood obesity? Childhood obesity is too broad for 2 pages. Yep. But you can look at a whole lot of things regarding kids, what kids know about what they eat, what's being taught in schools or a curriculum. I mean, you could do, something with kids and food for sure. A maximum length, I mean, I want you to keep it around 2 pages, single spaced each section. If you go a little bit over, that's better than doing less than. Always going a little over is better doing less than. Can we research how allergies affect family members? Allergies in diets or food allergies and a specific one? Yes, I think that would be interesting. Sorry, let me let the dog out. Sorry about that. Lots to say on the subject, perspective, try to keep short. Can we look at what grocery stores do with edible food that they can't sell? Yes. I love in my Soch 220 class, we look at a movie called Dive. So if you are into dumpster diving, or freeganism is another term, right? Getting your food for free, then by all means write about that. Food waste is a big topic. So if you're gonna write about dumpster diving or freeganism, try and find a way, that you could frame that, so that it's as concise or as focused as possible. And of course, I love that idea. And food waste, huge idea. You could go interview people at different grocery stores about what they do with their food waste, in Larimer County or wherever that might be. Could we do what we feed our animals compared to what we eat? It's broad, but certainly you can involve animals somehow, but I'm not quite sure how yet. Differences between eating habits from being home and being at school. Yes, potentially. If it's drastic or different enough. I don't know, right? If you're at school and you're eating whatever you can shop for, that's one thing. But if you're going from like buffet at school to mom and dad's buffet, it's not all that different, right? Maybe. Something in there might be. Can we use people for your sources? Yes, I think interviewing is great. There are a number of CSAs in town. I think the very first CSA in the United States is Happy Heart Farm, which is on Elizabeth Street, right next to the college. Dennis and Bailey are some awesome, awesome farmers. Why does anybody choose to be a farmer? What is a CSA, Community Shared Agriculture? Yeah, absolutely. Like the quality of ingredients of pet food and human food. Sure, you could look at something like that potentially. Dried dog pebbles compared to a raw diet and what we eat. Maybe. Yeah, might be something there. Anybody else have any questions about the paper itself, the format, or want to ask a question over your mic? I'm fine with that rather than, just typing on the side. Anything? Comparing the differences between ingredients allowed in the United States rather than in Europe. Yeah, and maybe not a lot of ingredients. Pick a couple. There are some stuff that's not allowed in food in places in the European Union that we do allow in our food. I think the differences between maybe if you pick one substantial one and look at that, look at why that might be. Sure, absolutely. All right. Okay, good. I'm just going to leave it at that for now as far as the paper. 3 sections. All of the details are in assignments under the Food Matters project. And if you ever want to Zoom meet just to talk about a potential idea or send me an email, I am absolutely fantastic with that. All right, let me look back here. And all right, screen sharing again. There we go, culture. Oops, and it's chapter 3. Sorry about that. So, first question today, right out of the gate. All right, here we go. Which of the following societies has the most culture? And I know how I asked this question, so I know it's vague, but I'll tell you what, and let me look at this question. Which of the following societies, do we have enough answers? We do. We have almost 70 people that chimed in on this. And I'm going to tell you what. All right, let me see how many people have their cameras. Unmute your cameras for a second, if you can. I want to see your faces with this one. Now, I know there's no choice of none of the above on purpose. I have asked this question for years and years and years. And I'm just gonna say this. Do you know, without looking at my data, I have put a random list of countries up here, and I know which one all of my classes always have the most disdain for. It's always the same country. So every semester, it shakes out differently for the other countries on this list, but there's one country that this country loves to snub. All right, is anybody who wants to not type it in there, but unmute your mic and tell me which country you think that is and why?
I'm gonna guess it's the United States because we look really badly upon ourselves.
It is not. It is not. Historically, we find ourselves favorably in this one as far as like who's got the most culture. Although oftentimes we're not the number one answer for sure. Who else has a guess?
I would guess India.
Interesting. Okay, so also not true. So let me lay it on you here. Okay, here are the answers. Which of the following has the most culture? 29 for India, 17 for China, 17 for the United States, and 4 for France. We love to hate France. I don't know what it is. You have to understand that if you didn't know this, like this is like a decade plus ago, people on Capitol Hill got so mad at France that they changed the name literally in the cafe on the Capitol to Freedom Fries instead of French fries. Yes, I know. My guess is that the French smoke more, drink more, eat fattier foods, and yes, this is true, live longer. Somehow, I think the United States, we don't like that or something, but it's hilarious. Somehow we are raised to think poorly about the French in some way. Anyway, okay, so why did you choose? Now, of course, this question is ridiculous, right? I mean, honestly, the question is ridiculous because no culture on this list or in general has the most culture, right? Like that doesn't exist, okay? So why do you think, what did you answer and why? Twice as many for India, by the way, and that is frequent, as the United States, China, and then of course, very low number for France. Oh, France just got a couple votes from people who logged on. Okay, go ahead. Why did you choose, what did you choose? And to this ridiculous question, and why, as we start to think about culture and cultural differences.
I said the United States just because to me, all of the other countries that were on that list were very monocultural, and we appreciate diversity here more than the other countries do. So I said that we have more culture because it's more diverse.
All right, I have to disagree with you there completely and entirely. If you're gonna say
as long as it's
India
respectfully, then I don't mind. We're good with
all
that.
right, I respectfully disagree and entirely. That India and China are not monocultures. They have a monoculture government. They have a Hindi-dominated government in India, and obviously a very strict dictator sort of thing going on in the Chinese government, but they are not monocultures entirely. They are massive countries with like hundreds of different cultures inside of them, and they have hundreds of different languages. If you get to like Western China in the desert area, and you got like the different minorities, like what's happening with the Uyghur Muslims, the genocide going on there. And then of course you have different Indian governments as far as like, Muslim and Hindu relationships, and then also just different minorities. Then you have different islands owned by them that also have their own culture and their own language. And then so they're definitely not monocultures. And that's the same with France too, even, it's a much smaller, very European country that's very, centralized, but they also have different cultures too, like the North and the South are very different from each other. Of course, you have the French territories too, which are also a part of France, but they have, Mediterranean or Pacific cultures, Pacific Islander cultures that are very different. And then the US is obviously, a melting pot of everything basically. So it's like, I feel like this. this question is very argumentative.
I appreciate you bringing that up, Lenora. I definitely agree with you, and thank you for educating me. I would love to know more. Maybe we can get together and talk about monoculturism, like viewed monoculturism versus actual monoculturism.
Lenora, do you have an interest in geography?
Yeah, and then I know I look very white on the camera, but I am also, Asian American, and then so having, Asian countries generalized like that is very important to me that it's not.
Good. And I think that one of the big pieces here is that like all of these countries that I listed have a great deal of diversity. And sometimes it's easy to think of like, oh, the United States is the melting pot, or sometimes it's easy to think, I think a lot of my students think, I mean, again, India comes in semester after semester after semester as people sort of perceiving the most culture. So I think it's very interesting because, of course, globally, tons of diversity, right? Debated between China and India, massive amounts of populations. Additionally, both countries have been inhabited for a long time. Also, you can look at countries like India that are home to, yes, absolutely. Good. All right, let's look at our next piece here. And this is really, oops, sorry, gotta toggling between all of these screens for everybody here. All right, so culture. What does it mean, right? I've got this piece here, got the questions. But what do I really mean when I get to culture? And what we mean as sociologists is everything, right? The ways of thinking, the ways of acting, and the material object that form a people's way of life. So, I mean, everything kind of is part of culture. How we think, how we act, what we own, depending the culture that you were raised in, with the same exact symbol or phrase or gesture that I would present, people would feel very differently, even if we're talking about within a particular country, right? I mean, the East Coast of the United States is very, very different from the West Coast. I'm going to tell you how much different the East Coast is from like the Midwest, which is very different than the South or the Southwest. So absolutely, it's a shared way of life. And in the United States, as I think the world is, we're very multicultural. Right? Sharing many different cultures in the same nation or society. And I think that we've got to distinguish when we talk about this in this chapter between two things, and that is thoughts and ideas, right? And things, concepts and actual tangible items, right? That we can touch, that we interact with. I'm going to skip this for now. All right. So how we break that down is into non-material and material culture, okay? When I'm talking about ideas, okay, that's non-material culture. When I'm talking about things, and I've got that list, that's material culture. So, and a good test question here, a good way to distinguish between these, right? So, non-material culture, intangible world of ideas created by members of society, karma, kindness, symbols, language, values, norms, and ideas, right? Created by members of a society. Now, I would like maybe 3 people quickly to chime in here, and we'll make it quick. What is your basic thought on what karma is? Okay, because we're looking at our concept of this. And I understand that everybody has a different one. So 3 people that chime in, 1, 2, and 3. If I was in a classroom, I'd walk around and I'd be like, what does karma mean to you? What does karma mean to you? And then we'll talk about it in a collective sense. So quickly, go ahead.
What goes around comes around.
All right, what goes around comes around. What else?
An appropriated term from Hinduism that is used incorrectly in the Western world.
All right, absolutely. What else?
What you put out is what you end up receiving, I guess.
Okay, so what you put out there in the universe is what you end up getting back, right? All right, so now, are any of those the technical definition of karma from the culture from which that originates? No, right? I mean, we all understand that. That being said, we have a collective sort of consciousness of what that is. It differs. It's not always correct and certainly culturally appropriated, right? We could use kindness as another example. And I'm sure that once in a while, somebody's idea of kindness is not somebody else's idea. But generally speaking, it doesn't matter if we agree on them. It's in this intangible world of ideas created by members of society. So here they are, and they mean different things to different people, but we also have a collective idea of what that is. And then material culture, and don't ask me this list is, it could be a better list. Refers to tangible things created by members of society. Why I have Corvettes up there is beyond me. I'm an old truck kind of a guy. Houses, cell phone, tools, and then I have a nook. My reminder down here, my thought as we look at culture is no way of life is natural to humanity. And that's going to relate here as I close class with this sort of last idea about culture and these shared ideas. Okay, so what's a nook? Does anybody know what I'm talking about here when I said, what do we do in this culture when babies cry? And then I have a nook or other question marks. What is another name for a nook? There's one word, but I know we've got lots of names for them. Little piece of plastic you put in your mouth. Babies are like, baby crying, ah, ah, ah. Piece of plastic, golden silence. All right, now. I'm going to talk about it in function here in a minute. A binky, yes. All right, so we've got nook, binky, passy, pacifier. Anybody else? We're missing a good one.
I don't know about here, but in South Africa, we call it a dummy.
A dummy?
Yeah.
Fantastic. Wow. I wish I had known that years ago. I'm loving that. Same meaning or? All right. I'm interested in that at least. A binky. Okay, sure, right? So the idea is that the baby's crying and it's crying and you don't know how to get it to stop. So you give it this piece of, I don't know, oil, right? That's been turned into plastic, and you put it in the baby's mouth and they start sucking and then they're quiet. And now, of course, my partner and I, Julie and I, we were intellectuals. And so we didn't want to give our baby right away when Storm was born a pacifier. We thought we would approach it in a smarter, intellectual way. And then about after 3 nights of crying where Julie's doing her thing and I'm trying to do the baby thing, we broke down and I bought multiple. I don't even know how many I bought over the years. We bought so many, in fact, that when Zion was a little baby, he used to double fist it. He'd have them like, right? Like around as he one, then the other, then the other, then the other. And so this seems normal to us, right? It's 2020, the baby's crying, throw a piece of plastic in their mouth, we're golden. Now let's go back, and I will generalize here and I'll say that because each Native American culture is different depending on where you were at and why. Let's say that a practice of Native American culture in some places, when the baby's crying, cry, wah, 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 is to pinch the nose and the mouth. Now, what is accomplished when this happens? So baby's crying, wah, wah. This will be your favorite re-recording to listen to. Wah, and then
They stop breathing.
No. Now, see, this is that cultural perspective, right? Like from our cultural perspective now, they stop breathing, lack of oxygen, but only for a second, right? Only for a second. It's not going to help people, right? If they do that like for any amount of time, but it's a way that was important to quiet a baby down, and you can be taught this without a piece of plastic, remarkably enough. Why would have that been important for those indigenous people at that time?
Was it maybe a survival method, like that you need to stop crying right now?
Sure. I mean, you know, it's not just you in that world. So location is important to keep that protected, sure. To not call attention to where they were, I would put forth also if you have to hunt. The further that you have to go, right, to hunt takes longer and longer depending upon that. So yeah, safety issues, all sorts of issues. Now, let's fast forward quick, and I'm almost done with class, but let's fast forward really quick. And here it is 2020, and let's just wait, let's rewind. Woo, 2019, when people sat in places like Olive Garden and the baby's crying, ah, wah, baby's crying, and I just reach over in the middle of Olive Garden and I go, whoop. What's going to happen? And how long will that take? Anybody? To not call it, okay, people are going to freak out. Yeah, it's how long is it going to take really when you do that in public for somebody to call the police? I doubt very long, right? But the idea here is that no way is necessarily of doing life for human beings is natural to humanity. Like it's just as odd to think about that now as it would be for somebody just to throw a piece of plastic, right, or a petroleum product in somebody's mouth as our answer now. You know, so we have to be able to look at things cross-culturally and understand as we examine culture that there is no one way for humans to do anything necessarily, right? And that's why I'm encouraging people, you know, to take a different look at that. Now, are there any questions? I'm going to keep going on chapter 3 on Wednesday. I think this Friday I would like for us to meet as well. I want to make sure that I can get through chapter 3 adequately this week. We can have some discussions and then do some follow-up with that. Questions for me about the paper, about this week, chapter on culture?
Thank you.
Anybody? All right. Well, awesome to see everybody today. Thank you. Thank you for showing. Thank you for showing yourselves and attending class. Thank you for participating. Remember, those questions on Top Hat are open all the way, I think, till 7 p.m. this evening. Be good people and do good things in this life, everybody. Talk to you later. Be safe. Mask up. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.